Dalzell here again with the Dalzell Realty Group. And just kind of wanted to touch base on another learning opportunity here and really talk about appraisals. You know, what are they? What are they used for? How do they come into play on both the buyer and selling side? So today we're really going to address it from the buyer side. And when does it come into play? Who orders it? What is it? So let's first start with what the appraisal is, right? So the appraisal is if you're using a lender, or even if you're not using a lender, you're going to get a third party person who's licensed in the state of Nevada as a home appraiser. They're going to come out, they're going to evaluate the property, they're going to use comps from the area, and they're going to be very much like-minded properties. So in most cases, a single story, they're going to need comps that are single stories. They're not going to be using two-story homes to help find the value. Now, in certain circumstances, they will say the subject property is a 3-bedroom, the comps in the area might be a 4-bedroom. They'll take that 4 bedrooms, kind of reduce the value of that 4th bedroom, but basically their job is to come in and evaluate the property based on what's being sold in the area and assign a value to it. Now, why is that important? Well, for a lender perspective, the lenders are going to want to make sure that they're being protected, right? They're lending money on this property and they want to make sure that they're not going to go ahead and lend into something they might be upside down in. So for this example, let's take a home that is $500,000. Okay, so congratulations, you have a buyer, you've entered into a contract for $500,000. Now, typically, we're going to have an appraisal contingency, again, especially if we're going through a lender, and let's say that's roughly 18 days. So during that process, your lender is going to go ahead and hire someone to come out, handle that appraisal, and they're going to get that information back. Now, you may just get as simple as the appraisal comes back, home meets value. So what does that mean? Well, it's a good sign as far as the fact is that the contract can move forward. There's no issue with the appraisals. The bank's not concerned about loaning on the money, and they will continue to fund the contracted price as is. Now, what happens when it doesn't come in at value, right? So it can either come in high. They're not really going to mention that because, again, the bank's going to feel pretty good about the situation they're in because they're not over lending on the situation. So the problem becomes if the appraisal comes in low. So again, we take the $500,000 property, and in this scenario, let's just say the buyer has decided to put 10% down. So they put down $50,000 as their down payment for the lending. They've asked the lender to borrow $450,000. Well, now, instead of the value of the home being $500,000, which is a contract you entered into, the appraiser has come back and says, well, we've done our numbers, we've run our comps, and in our opinion, this home is valued at $475,000. Well, certainly now the 90-10 ratio is gone, right? And so what happens now is that the bank is now saying, we're not going to lend $450,000 on a $475,000 property if the lending criteria is that you had to put 10% down. So what does that mean? Well, that means is that they're probably only going to lend about $427,000, $28,000 on that property. So now you've got to make up that difference, or you've got to figure out if the seller's not going to concede and drop down to that $475 price. And again, this is where the negotiations come in. And let's say the seller says, no, I'm not coming down. 500 is the number. Well, we know the banks only valued the property at $475,000. So at the 90-10 ratio that, let's just say in this case, the bank has stated that that's what they're going to require, the bank's only going to lend you about $428,000. So now you're going to have to come out of pocket not only for that $50,000 that you had originally thought as the 10% down on the $500,000, but you're going to have to make up that difference because we know the $50,000 plus the $428 is only getting you to about $478, right? So you're going to have to come up with that extra money if we can't get the seller to come down in those negotiations. Okay, so that's why it becomes important. This is a negotiating spot for us. Now, in most cases, you know, at this point, as the buyer's agent, we're going to come in and negotiate on your behalf. We're going to show the appraisal and work with the seller to try to find a happy medium. Hopefully, we can get them to come down all the way to that value or meet them somewhere that works out for both parties. So again, that's why the appraisal becomes important. And anytime you're having a lending happening in the buyer, and essentially you're not paying cash, right? You're going to the bank. They're highly recommended. Now, in some cases, you may be able to waive the appraisal for a lending situation, and the bank may not even require an appraisal for certain lending situations. So if we were to take that same $500,000 home, and let's say you either had savings or had sold another property, and you're going to go ahead and put $400,000 down on this new $500,000 property. Well, the bank's now saying, okay, you're asking for $100,000. We've looked at this property. We see the contract for $500,000. We're really not concerned about loaning you $100,000 on a property at $500,000, right? They're fairly confident at that point that their money would be protected if they ever had to foreclose or recall the loan, that they would be able to resell it or do something to recoup their liability that they were out for that $100,000. So again, why does that bank want that appraisal? They really don't want to make sure they're not lending to an upside down property, right? They don't want to lend, over whatever rate they give you or whatever ratio they give you. Say it is a 90-10, right? They don't want to be upside down where they've now essentially loaned $450,000 on a $475,000 property because we're no longer at the 90% finance, 10% down type ratio. So again, that's what the appraisal is all about. Highly recommend them for buyers. It's really not even up to you when we start to get into lenders. The lenders are going to be the ones that are requiring it. Now, as we move into cash purchases, that's a different story. It can strengthen your offer, is that if you feel confident in the value, running our own comps, if you feel that this is a home that, regardless if I'm overpaying, this is my home, I have to have this home, we can waive that appraisal. And a lot of sellers, agents, listing agents will find that as a positive, because that's one less contingency that them and their sellers have to deal with. So in a cash instance, we still want to take a look at the appraisal and decide if it's a right fit for you. Every case and scenario is going to be a little bit different. In buying a home through a financing options, most of the time the bank is going to tell you whether you even have that option or not. And majority of the time the bank's going to make sure that they get that appraisal done, because most people are in the situation where they're asking for quite a bit in the lending and maybe putting anywhere from 3 to 10% down. So think about that kind of stuff as you're entering into that appraisal contingency. You're talking to your lenders, kind of talking to them and finding out what's going on, and get as much information as you can. Hope this helped clarify the appraisal and what it is, who orders it, when it, what it's really used for. As always, if you have any other questions regarding this issue or anything else on the real estate side from the buying or selling, always feel free to reach out, and myself or a partner on my team will get back to you, and we'll get all the answers that you need and help you out through this process. Have a great day.